Jake froze in his room, the Texas dusk bleeding orange through the blinds, his phone buzzing with a text from his boyfriend. Then the door crashed open, Tom's shadow filling the frame, his eyes locked on the screen's wallpaper, two boys kissing under a tree. One photo lit a fuse, and his dad's fists blew it all apart. Tom roared, "What the hell is this?" and snatched the phone, smashing it against the wall, shards flying as Jake, 14, stammered, "Dad, Before he could finish, Tom's belt was off, leather cracking the air, and the first blow sent Jake sprawling, blood pooling, the night turning black as he hit the dirt outside. They lived in a dusty suburb outside Houston. Tom, a welder with calloused hands and a temper like a storm. Jake, a quiet kid who'd rather sketch than wrestle. And Linda, his mom, chain-smoking in the kitchen, her voice lost to years of shouting matches. Jake had kept it hidden, his crush on Ryan, a freckled boy from art class, locked in late-night texts, a secret he'd guarded until that wallpaper slipped. Tom had barged in, beer on his breath, grease on his shirt, looking for a fight, and found one bigger than he'd bargained for. "You're a disgrace," he bellowed, dragging Jake by the collar through the house. Linda's pleas, "Tom, stop!" it drowned by his rage. The beating went public. Tom hauled Jake to the front yard, the belt slashing down, welts rising on Jake's arms, his screams ripping through the humid air. Neighbors peeked, Mrs. Carter through her curtains, the Lopez kids with their phones out, filming as Tom swung. "I'll beat it out of you," Linda lunged, clawing at Tom's arm, sobbing. "He's your son." But he shoved her back, the leather biting Jake's cheek, a gash that'd scar for life. The video caught it. Tom's snarls, Jake's blood. Linda's wails, a nightmare gone viral by morning. 30 seconds of hell looping online, branding Jake the faggot kid before he even woke. He came to in a hospital bed, face swollen, stitches tugging his skin, the beep of machines cutting through a fog of pain. Linda sat there, eyes red, whispering, "I couldn't stop him." But Tom was gone, back home, belt coiled, no remorse. Nurses murmured, broken nose, cracked ribs, a miracle he'd lived. And Jake stared at the ceiling, the taste of blood in his mouth, Ryan's face fading from his mind. The phone was trash. His secret was out, and his dad's fist had rewritten his world. 14. Gay, and a punching bag for a man who'd once taught him to ride a bike. Tom didn't show, didn't call, didn't care, leaving Jake with a chart of injuries and a mother too broken to fight. The neighbors' footage spread, school kids texting it, strangers gawking online, and Jake lay there, a kid shattered by one photo, one night, one father's hate. The sledgehammer of shame had landed, and it'd echo for 15 years, through streets, scars, and a silence thicker than Texas dust. This isn't just a beating, it's a war's first shot, and it's gonna burn. If this grips you, smash that like, share it with someone who's felt a fist, and subscribe to Heart Stories. We're telling the rawest truths, and I need you here for it. Jake stumbled from the hospital, stitches pulling his face, the Texas night swallowing him as he ran, away from Tom's fists, Linda's tears, and a town that had seen his blood on their screens. 14. Broken. He hitched a ride to Houston, a backpack of comics and a busted lip his only keepsakes, vowing never to look back. Tom didn't chase, but his hate did, clawing at Jake through years of drift, a wound festering with every letter he tore up, every ash-filled box his dad sent to remind him, "You're nothing." That night's beating wasn't the end. It was the start of a life smashed to pieces, held together by rage and a rope's edge. He landed rough bus stations, alleys, a kid too young to rent a room, too scared to call home. The video went viral. Texas teen beat by dad, kids at school texting it, strangers staring as he scavenged gas station food, his sagging hoodie a shield against their whispers. That's him. Friends ghosted, Ryan too, his number dead after a week, fear or shame snapping their thread. Jake slept on benches, rain soaking his sketches, hunger gnawing his gut, until a trucker found him on a bridge, rope in hand, tears streaking, yanking him back with a gruff, "You're enough, kid." That voice saved him. But the scars didn't fade, and Tom's shadow grew longer. Tom wrote letters at first, stained with coffee and spite. No, sorry, just rants. "You shamed us, fix yourself." Jake tore them, each rip a scream he couldn't voice. But the worst came a year on, a package. Heavy, stinking of smoke, dumped at a shelter he'd crashed in. Inside, ashes of his comics, his clothes, a photo of him at 10, charred at the edges, a note scrawled in Tom's hand. "This is what you are, gone." The shelter guy winced. "Your old man's a bastard." But Jake just stared. The ash on his fingers a brand. Tom's hate a knife twisting deeper than any belt. A father burning his son's past to dust. He clawed up odd jobs, dishwashing, a cot in a Dallas flophouse, 15. 16, a ghost dodging mirrors, his stitched face a map of that night. The video lingered, co-workers snickered. "Ain't you famous?" Pushing him to run again. City to city, a runaway with no roots. Tom tracked him once, showed at a Greyhound stop, boots crunching gravel, spotting Jake kissing a boy under a flickering light. Their eyes locked, Tom's jaw clenched. Jake's breath stopped, but Tom turned, walked off. Too proud to beg, too ashamed to stay. That was the last, 15 years of silence after. Broken only by threats Jake burned, had he swallowed. A war neither would win. By 18. Jake was steel, scarred, silent, surviving on grit and strangers' kindness, a life pieced from scraps. He'd see dads with sons, tossing balls, laughing and taste bile. Tom's voice, "Fix yourself," ringing louder than the belt's crack. The ashes stayed with him, a jar he couldn't ditch, a reminder of a father who'd rather torch his kid than love him. Linda called once, "He's sorry," but Jake hung up, her sobs no match for the tro he'd sifted through. 15 years stretched that night into a lifetime. Pain, pride, and a rope he'd never tie again. All because Tom's fists didn't just break bones, they broke a boy. It wasn't living, it was enduring. A shattered life limping forward. Tom's hate a chain Jake dragged through every mile. The beating left scars on his face, his soul, and the ashes left a vow, never forgive, never forget. But 15 years is a long fuse, and it was burning toward a reckoning no one saw coming. Not Jake, not Tom, not the ghosts of that Texas yard. Jake hunched over his desk in an Austin newsroom, the hum of printers masking the ghosts in his head. 15 years since Tom's belt carved scars into his face, since ashes of his childhood landed in his hands. Now 29, a journalist with a steady hand and a partner who loved him. He'd built a life, but hate was the mortar, Tom's shadow the cracks. Every byline he wrote, stories of rights, of pain carried that Texas night, a grudge he nursed like a flame. Until a call from Linda lit it hotter. "Your dad's dying." 15 years of rage roared back, and Jake stood at a crossroads, face the bastard or let him rot. He'd clawed his way up, Dallas dives to Austin cubicles. A GED scratched out between bar shifts, a knack for words landing him a gig chasing stories. He lived decent now, an apartment with skylights, Sam cooking dinner, a dog named Buck, but the past clung like smoke. Nights, he'd dig out that jar of ashes, Tom's gift, running fingers through the grit, seeing his comics burn, hearing "Fix yourself" in every creak of the floor. Sam'd catch him. "Let it go." Jake, but he'd snap. "You don't get it, he broke me." Hate wasn't just memory, it was fuel. A fire he stoked with every glance at his scarred cheek. The call came late, Linda's voice, frail, cracking through static. "Tom's in the hospital, cancer won't last." Jake gripped the phone, knuckles white. "Good riddance." She begged. "He's your dad, he's changed." But Jake laughed, bitter, hanging up as her sobs faded. He paced, Buck whining at his heels, the jar glinting on the shelf. 15 years, and Tom still ruled him. A puppet master from a bed he'd never see. Then he found it, a journal, stuffed in a box, pages yellowed, words from 16. "He burned us, screamed I'm dead, wish I was." The ink bled, and so did he, hate choking his throat. Next day, he dug deeper, old contacts, news clippings, chasing a hunch Tom wasn't done hurting him. A source tipped him, Dallas, '09, a bar fight that cracked his ribs again. Not random, hired muscle. Tom's cash behind it, a lesson to straighten him out. And Jake's hands shook, scars throbbing. Those fists weren't just from that night. They'd hunted him years later, a father's wrath outsourced to break him twice. He wrote it, local man paid to beat gay son, fingers smashing keys, ready to blast Tom's name across Texas. A revenge 15 years in the making, a headline to bury the bastard before cancer could. He stopped, article saved. Not sent, Sam's voice in his ear. You're better than this. Or was he? The journal? The ashes? The scars? They screamed no, but Linda's call gnawed. A splinter he couldn't pull. He rode to the hospital, 2 hours. Rain slashing the windshield, hate pulsing. Revenge a loaded gun he might not fire. Tom's face loomed, red, raging, then frail, fading, and Jake gripped the wheel, torn between torching the past or facing it. 15 years had forged him, tough, scarred, a man who'd survived, but hate was heavy, and the road to that bed was a gauntlet of ghosts. Each mile of fight he wasn't sure he'd win. It was a life in shadow, Jake standing tall, but bent by a hate he couldn't shed, a father he couldn't kill in his head. The newsroom? Sam. The dog, they were real, but Tom was a specter, his fists in every mirror, his cash in every bruise. 15 years of running, writing, raging, and now a dying man pulled him back. A reckoning Jake didn't want but couldn't dodge. The past wasn't dead, it was waiting, and it had hit harder than he'd ever dreamed. Jake pushed through the hospital doors, the antiseptic stink hitting him like a slap, his boots echoing on tile as he tracked Tom's room. 15 years since those fists broke his face, and now he'd face the wreckage. Tom lay there, gaunt, tubes snaking from his arms, a shell of the welder who'd swung a belt, eyes flickering open, voice a rasp. Jake, sorry it took so long. The words landed soft, a crack in the hate Jake had hauled all this way. But then Tom spoke again, and the crack split wide. 15 years of rage met a lie sharper than any leather, a twist that had burned deeper than the scars. The ward buzzed, nurses shuffling, monitors beeping, but Jake stood frozen. Rain still dripping from his jacket, the article in his pocket, a loaded gun he hadn't fired. Tom coughed, frail fingers clutching a box, old photos. Jake at 5 with a fishing pole, grinning under Tom's arm, pushing it toward him. Kept these, couldn't toss them. Jake's throat tightened. Memories he'd thought burned with the ashes. Tom's voice trembling. I watched you, your wedding. On TV, papers, I was there. Jake blinked. Hate faltering, picturing Tom in the crowd at his marriage to Sam. A shadow too proud to step forward, too broken to stay away. I'm sorry, Tom wheezed, eyes wet. For losing so much time, should have seen you. Not the shame. Jake sank into a chair. The jar of ashes heavy in his mind, those fists fading under this frail man's tears. 15 years. And here was regret. A father reaching through the wreckage. He gripped the box. Photos spilling, birthdays. Ball games, Tom whispering, I messed up. Kid. Jake's chest ached, hate crumbling. A truce forming in the beep of a heart monitor, until Tom's next words hit. Cold as steel. I don't regret it. Hitting you. I'd do it again. Just hated losing face with the boys at the shop. The room spun, Jake's breath caught. The photos trembling in his hands as Tom's face hardened. A flicker of the old rage behind those tubes. Sorry? Jake spat, voice shaking. You're sorry for what, your reputation? Tom shrugged, weak but unbowed. You were my son, then you weren't. Folks talked. I couldn't stand it. The twist sank in, 15 years. The beating, the ashes, the hired fists, not guilt for Jake, but for Tom's pride. A dying man's plea not for love, but for peace with his own ghost. Linda'd lied. He's changed, and Jake had bought it. Hate swapped for a second of hope. Now ash again. Your wedding, Tom rasped. Stood outside, saw you happy, wanted to drag you back. Fix you, but I let you go. Jake's fists clenched. Scars throbbing. Tom there. Not to cheer, but to judge. A father who'd tracked him not from love, but control. Who'd beaten him twice, once with hands, once with cash, and now begged forgiveness to ease his own end. Fix me? Jake growled. You broke me, sent thugs, burned my life. Tom's eyes dulled. Had to, people saw. The box hit the floor. Photos scattering. A truce torched by truth. 15 years of hate roaring back. Louder than the belt. Sharper than the lie. He stood, boots scuffing. Rain streaking the window. Tom's sorry a hollow echo. A con from a man too small to mean it. The photos lay there, smiling Jake. Proud Tom. Mocking a bond that had never been. A father who'd trade his son for a nod at the bar. 15 years led to this. Hate met not with healing, but a mask. A twist that ripped the scar wide open. Jake turned, door slamming. Tom's cough fading. a reckoning stalled by a lie, a wound too deep to close, and a storm still brewing for one last blow. Jake stormed from the hospital, the Texas rain lashing his face. Tom's lie, "Sorry for my shame, not yours," ringing louder than the belt that had scarred him 15 years back. He drove, headlights cutting fog, hate boiling, back to Austin, to Sam, to a life he'd clawed from ash. Days blurred, Tom fading in that bed, but Jake returned, sat by him, words stumbling. "I hate you, always will, but I'm done carrying it." Tom's eyes flickered, a grunt, then silence. 15 years of rage met a truce. Clumsy, real until the will hit, a final twist from the grave that had cracked Jake's world one last time. The room was sterile, Tom's cough weaker, his frame a husk under sheets. Jake perched on the edge, fists unclenching. "You beat me," he said, voice low. "Sent thugs. Burned my life, why?" Tom rasped. "Had to, folks watched." Jake nodded. Hate didn't bend, but he did. "I forgive you, not for you, for me." They talked awkward. Halting, Tom mumbling about baseball, Jake about coffee, a bridge of broken planks over a chasm of scars. Tom gripped his hand. "Saw you on TV, proud." Sorta, a crack of light in the dark. A father's half-step, and Jake took it, letting go of the jar he'd never hold again. Tom died that night, quiet. Gone, Jake left with photos, a weight lifted, hate dumped in that rain-soaked lot. He went home, Sam waiting, Buck's tail thumping, vowing to live past the fists, past the ashes. Weeks later, a lawyer called Tom's will. Jake braced, expecting nothing, but the twist cut deeper. Everything, house, truck. Savings left to Linda's sister, a stepmom he'd never met. With a note, found in Tom's drawer, scrawled in dying ink, "You're still a stain, always will be." The bridge burned, Tom's last punch, a coward's jab from beyond, spitting on forgiveness with a pen. Jake stood in their kitchen, Sam brewing coffee. Rain tapping glass, the will crumpled in his fist. That note a blade through 15 years of hell and a truce he'd dared to trust. He laughed, sharp, hollow. He won't win. He'd forgiven, not for Tom's soul, but his own. A choice heavier than hate, stronger than scars. The photos stayed, faded smiles, but the note hit the trash. A father's ghost buried at last. 15 years taught him, pain breaks, lies shatter, but letting go builds something fists can't touch. They'd faced it, Jake and Tom, a war of blood and betrayal, ending not in peace, but in a truth too raw to dodge. Tom's lie, his will, his last cut, they stung. But Jake stood taller, a man forged in fire, free not by Tom's grace, but his own. What's the hardest thing you've let go? Drop it below, I need yours. 'Cause mine's hate, if this ripped you open. Please smash that like, share it with someone who's fought their own war. And subscribe to Heart Stories, I'm begging you. Stick with us for these gut punch tales.